If you think clicking next game is going to help you improve, you're dead wrong. Here's how to actually get better at chess. Hi, this is kapil.sarangi aka Gaming, and in today's video I would be teaching you how to analyze your games in the most optimal way. So without wasting much of your time, let's get started. Well, I've divided the video into multiple different segments. Obviously, we would be analyzing few games, we would be looking at some openings, and I would be doing the analysis with and without the engine. So feel free to jump around, let me know your thoughts, feedbacks in the comment section. And if you like this video, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe if you're new to the channel. I'm just a small creator, and so yeah, please do subscribe. I reply to all the comments. Okay, for starters, I have one game for you. I would recommend for those of you who are looking forward to analyze their own games. After you finish one game, you should quickly click on the analysis, the game review button, which would lead you to this page where you can look at your accuracy. Obviously, like the game rating and stuff, you can check how much, how many good moves you have, the number of mistakes and blunders and everything. And the most important thing is this graph right here, which shows the evolution bar and everything, and it shows the pace of the game. Now I want you to just look at this graph and click on this go to self analysis button. So that would lead you to this page where I would recommend don't analyze the game and just look at the engine lines. You should be well aware of all the intricacies in the position, and that is something which you build over a long period of time. You need a ton of analysis, ton of knowledge of the position. So I would recommend just click on the explore page. So you would lead to something like this. Now let's try to look at this game. So in the game, we actually had a Caro-Kann defense on the board. So we had e4 c6, d4 d5, e5, bishop f5, and this funny h4 line. Now the idea is very simple. If I go with a move like e6, then there is actually g4, bishop g6, h5, bishop e4, and f3, and that actually traps my bishop. So I was very lucky I knew about it. So after h4, I went with h5. So in the game, we had bishop d3, takes, e6, bishop g5, bishop b7. And if I have to be brutally honest with you guys, I knew the opening up until let's say 10 moves. But right around here, let's say 97, 92, I knew how to carry forward this game. I was looking forward for some c5 break in the future. I can't really castle obviously, but I can go for a long castle in the game. In the game, we had queen b6. I was trying for this c5 break, but he castled. I castled long, c3, rook to g8. Now, I have a very simple idea in my mind. I would like to put pressure on the b2 pawn, but the fact that I have castled my king to the queen side, taking this pawn on b2 is very risky in my opinion. So that's why I am trying to come up with an idea, given that white is castled in the king side. So a move like queen back to d8 followed by some sort of a g5 break could be a good plan. So in the game, we had knight g5. I took, pawn takes, rook went back. Obviously, if I go for rook to g6, I figured moves like f4 and f5 could be trouble in the future. So rook to h8 was a good move, and f6 break, knight f3, queen d8, and g6. Now this is where the game became very tricky. For me, my idea was very simple. I would love to get this pawn. So move like queen e8, knight f8 back, or like rook to h6 could be a good plan. In the game, we had queen e8, rook to d1, rook to h6, and apparently that's not a good move. And he found knight to h4, because knight to h4 guards the pawn, but there's another move. Now in the game, if you are analyzing and if you see this bar which is moving around, knight to h4 looks like a very good move because it defends the pawn, but it shows there's actually something better. Now I want you guys to think and come up with an idea what could be a better move. So let's say you give like 2 to 3 minutes of thought, you come up with an idea, you can make that move on the board, and that would eventually give you a result, is it good or not. Otherwise, you can go and turn on the engine, you can look at the engine lines, you can check the game review as well. So the real idea was just taking the pawn on f6. Now this pawn is kind of weak, right? Now I'm not sure how would you do that. So I will just go and look at the engine. So engine suggests, okay, my bad. Apologies. Yeah, right around here. Knight h4 was a miss. The best move was apparently taking over here, and if I take back, then move like knight h4 is actually great. If I go rook to h8 back, and I think moves like knight f5 is also possible, threatening some sort of fork. And yeah, if I go and take this pawn, there is just knight to e7 check, and that wins the queen as well. So in the game after knight h4, I went with knight f8. He took the pawn. Pawn takes. Queen to e3, attacking the rook in the corner. I went rook h8 back, and after a few moves, you would see we end up in a position where I am losing a pawn on e6. But there's not much to show in the game. It was a very tricky rook end game. I was creating some sort of threats, maybe going for a checkmate on the h file, but definitely it's not going to fall for that. And after a few moves, that game eventually ended up in a win for me, because there's let's say, I'm not sure what would you play, you just can't really defend the checkmate. So yeah, here he resigned and I won the game. Okay, so after completing a self-analysis, I would always recommend going through all the engine lines. You can use the chess.com game review feature, which would give you the accuracy of the games, all the blunders, all the brilliancies you have made in the game. And yeah, so let's try to look the game by using the help of an engine. So in the game, we went through all this analysis, and apparently these are all good moves. Knight d7 wasn't really the best move, but the idea in the game which we opted for was fine. So right around here, I would say, yeah, the g6 was actually not a good move, and queen e8 was great. Rook to d1, knight h6. And the best part about having an engine is you can miss a lot of key plans in a game, and just going through this engine lines, that's actually a very nice tool. It can actually help you a lot in improving the quality of your games. But the biggest problem is with the use of engines, you're always analyzing a move. You need to understand that analyzing the move is not important. Analyzing the idea is much more important. So with the help of engines, you can go through your mistakes, but it's very important to go through a self-analysis, because that is something which is eventually help you in building your intuitions. It's going to help you in getting good moves on the board. So yeah, queen e3 was a miss. Apparently knight f5 should be better, I believe. Yes, knight f5 is the best move, because obviously if you defend the rook, there is just knight to d6. That's a check. I kind of missed that. It was a bad game. I'm not showing my fancy games for this video, but yeah. So in the game we had takes, queen to e3, which was miss, and okay, again, I'm not sure why is that miss. Take here. What's the best move? Queen to a3. Apparently queen to a3 is a good move. I think it's putting pressure over here. And king to b8. There is queen d6 check. There is king e8. And rook into e6 is much better because it's put more tangible pressure on the queen, and there are some sort of pressure on the f6 pawn as well. So definitely I didn't see that coming in time soon. In the game we traded the rooks. I defend the the 7th rank. Rook to f8. I was causing some problems for him, and eventually I was shuffling, but I had more time on the clock, so I went for this idea where I took the pawn on b2. Now, okay, I don't think that's okay. Where's the blunder? So the huge blunder comes over here when he goes for king to h4, and apparently a move like rook to d1 is very brutal because you can't really defend. If you go something like here, here, then there's still you're losing material, right? You're just losing everything. So yeah, having a membership is great. You can buy chess.com membership. The link will be in the description. And yeah, let's try to analyze few openings. Now for this segment of this video, we would be looking at few openings, but instead of focusing much more on theories, we would rather focus on how to analyze them. So I'm a d4 player. I usually play the Queen's Gambit. So okay, I'll just quickly turn off the engine. I'll show you a very cool variation. So d4 knight f6, c4 e6, knight f3, d5, knight c3, and bishop to b4, which is the Ragozin defense. And this is something which I even play with the black pieces against Queen's Gambit. So the variation goes something like this: bishop to g5, d takes c4, e4, c5, bishop c4, c takes d4, knight d4, queen f5, putting pressure on the bishop on f6, and also there's a ton of pressure on the c3 knight. You can obviously go for bishop d2 back, which is a, you know, just a standard line, or also you can go for this variation where you take on f6, bishop into c3, bc3, queen c3, king to f1. Obviously, if you go queen to d2, you hang your rook on a1. So king f1, queen c4 is a check, king g1. Now it seems that black can take the bishop, but that's actually a huge blunder because of rook to c1, and you see there's rook c8, king e7, and rook h8. So you need to sacrifice your queen for the rook. So instead of taking, okay, you can do one thing. You can take the bishop over here, or after king to g1, the best move in the position is bishop to d7. The second best move would be knight to d7. That's the second line. And also there is a line where you can, castle, and let's say move like queen g4. I mean, obviously castle is not the best move, but you are still surviving after g6. I mean, you can go for this idea, but obviously there are some time where you can go back. But I would show you one more thing. So like the variation which I'm showing you right now is something which I have in my notes. This is something I play from both colors, so I pretty much remember the whole theory. But I remember playing one game. I had a game with the black pieces where right around here, after taking on c4, my opponent played, instead of e4, he played e3. Now you might ask, what's the huge idea? What's the difference? And you know what? It's very beautiful. So let's say we come up with the same variation, but instead of having a pawn on e4, we have e3. So I remember in that game, after e3, I played c5. My opponent played, he took my pawn on c4. I played, cd4, knight d4, queen f5. And we had a very similar line where, we got to have this on the board. And yeah, obviously I can go for bishop d7, which is like the most theoretical approach. Knight d7 comes, it's a very tricky line. And castling was like a standard line, which is not the best move. In that game, I remember I castled, and I'm not I can't really recall what my opponent played, but let's say any other move like rook b1, a4, it doesn't really matter. And I won that game. But after winning that game, I tried to analyze, and you know what? I got something very special. So what I had in my mind, that let's say after castling, my opponent could, play something like queen to g4. Let's say I go with a move like g6. I'm not sure what would he play. He can go for some h4 ideas. He can go for some a4 or any other move. But there's actually a very nice move in the position. That is something which I found after analyzing the game. He can actually play knight to f5. You see, if I turn on the engine, this is absolutely winning. Because knight to f5, your queens are seeing each other. So if you take, this is actually a checkmate, and also this is also a checkmate. So I can't really, take the queens. So what's the big idea? I'll just take the knight. But that leads to queen takes c4, and you lose your queen, and that's absolutely losing. So you see, this is such a beautiful move. Just a basic pawn move, like instead of e4, if you go with e3, the whole dynamics of the position changes. So with analyzing more and doing self-study, that is something which can help you get much more insights into the game, and that's something which can help you increase your rating as well. So in summary, after finishing a game, don't click on new game. Instead of that, click on the game review option. You can first look at the accuracy, the ratings and stuff, how have you performed, and then go for a self-study. After completing the self-study, you can obviously look at the engine lines, try to analyze and see all your mistakes altogether. And if you are playing a theoretical opening where, let's say, you played 15 moves of theory, 10 moves of theory, it doesn't really matter. Whenever you go out of the book moves, you can go and check the lines, which can give you much more clarity of the position, and that will eventually help you in improving your opening repertoire. So yeah, that's pretty much it from my side. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe if you're new to the channel, and that's it. Kate Gaming signing off. Goodbye. Peace.